Hey kids, continuing on the Why Comic Readers Suck. I think we're up to number 2 or 3, but this one is a time-honored tradition. And I think a lot of people complain about this, really don't understand that it's all in good fun. It's Marvel versus DC. It's been around since Marvel was created. And DC said, yeah, we're your publisher now, or we're your distributor. You can only do 13 titles. I mean, it's been a battle back and forth, but as far as the readers are concerned, yeah, sure, you got your Marvel Zombies and whatever you would call the similar thing for DC, but it's more about a playful competition, and that's how it was in the beginning, by the way, this whole Marvel versus DC. It only got really dirty in the 2000s with, what's his name, Phil something or other. Anyway, I digress. This is a pretty cool segment. Please just kick back, relax, and let's get this party started. All right, let's move on to number 2. Marvel versus DC. Marvel is the best-selling company in superhero comics. Batman comics are really the only DC books that are truly competitive, despite DC putting out Amazing Comics Monthly. Actually, yeah, they're doing pretty well this time around. I gotta say, I like more than I dislike. Marvel has a lot of fans, and while many fans buy books from both companies, there is a vocal contingent who won't give DC a try and go out of their way to antagonize fans and creators from DC. I've never been antagonized for my love of DC. Some DC fans do the exact same things to Marvel counterparts. It's a toxic approach to fandom. Marvel and DC are very different in key ways, and pretending that either company never does quality work is foolish. Superhero comics are a massive tent with room for all kinds of heroes and stories. Fans fighting over favorite companies is childish and hurts everyone. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Maybe modern day where you've got the in Twitters and everybody's got to be a douche to everybody. Maybe it's the fact that when we did our arguing in comic shops back in the 80s and 90s, we were face to face with people, so we didn't use the worst insults ever. But this has been around since the freaking beginning.
I think they're talking about Comicsgate. I'm going to go on a limb right there.
Well, they've actually mentioned Comicsgate when they are mentioning. They actually
no, don't think they have blaming Comicsgate for every problem they have.
Yeah. Now here's the thing, and Steve the Martin is bringing it up. I like both. Now I'm more of a DC fan than I am a Marvel fan, and I remember Marvel versus DC, and but I remember a lot of people who would be like, oh, I love Marvel and not so much DC. They would still buy DC titles. Mm-hmm. Like Teen Titans was a must-have. Swamp Thing was a must-have. Batman was a must-have. And then when John Byrne comes along, Superman was a must-have. So you would say, yeah, I like DC, but you would still buy the X-Men because who wanted to be left out of the freaking X-Men? You would still be buying Amazing Spider-Man because it was, in fact, amazing. You bought both Secret Wars and Crisis at the time. Marvel versus DC has been around forever. I think this is just the complaint about comics Twitter part 2.
Yeah, currently the Marvel versus DC, back then it was like you actually had competition. Now it's like, which one has the least offensive book? You know,
yeah.
So that's come down to Twitter.
And here's another thing. When Marvel started getting bigger, I want to say Infantino was the publisher or the main editor at DC Comics, and they got along. Marvel and DC got along. It was a friendly rival. It wasn't until Joe Quesada comes along and takes over as editor that they wanted to bring back the Marvel versus DC, but they were actually confrontational about it. It no longer was a friendly thing. It was, let's see if we can hurt them, and that's when it became harsh.
Well, and that's also toxic. When we got the era of exclusive contracts as well.
Yeah, that had not been a thing for a long damn time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we got.
I was going to ask VENKMAN real quickly. So do you remember seeing something like this at Hobby Lobby?
No.
Okay. So yeah, no, I found this at my local antique mall for $6 over the weekend.
Oh, I've seen those hanging around. That is really cool.
I've never seen that one.
It's a little beat up in the back, but I mean,
well, that right there, that is the original, the original art that was going to sell the original Justice League versus the Avengers.
I haven't been to Alabama.
So. When that was when
80s era, because I mean, here's Zatanna and her, crab.
Let me full screen you here. Yeah. When after the success of Spider-Man and Superman, they figured Avengers and JLA should be next, and this is what George Perez drew up to kind of sell the big wigs on it, and unfortunately, as you know, it took a little bit longer than what they had hoped to bring that in. Moran said, I prefer Marvel, but back in the day, DC had self-contained stories. So to someone who bought comics once a year, I bought DC unless I could find all the parts of the stories on the spinner racks. I'm a DC guy, but a healthy Marvel is good for DC and vice versa, says Jay Lucian. I wasn't anti-DC as much as I just didn't find them desirable or interesting. Titles in the 1980s and 90s, there was no antipathy. It just wasn't my thing. While I got to tell you, I slowly got... It's a feather. I slowly got out of Marvel because DC was just kicking all sorts of asses. The late 80s and the 90s came along.
My first DC comic was The Flash, and that was Josh Williamson.
Yeah.
Up until then, 2019, I did not read anything from DC whatsoever. Didn't bother looking over there. I was more into Marvel stuff until 2012 when they shit the bed. And then I just kind of ventured away from that and to stop buying comic books. And I saved a lot of money on my car insurance too.
With Geico? One slick dude is saying in the 60s, Marvel was more popular than DC, but that was actually in the late 60s. They were gaining popularity, and it was Weisinger, I want to say. I think it was Weisinger who was going, it's a fad. It's a fad. Don't worry. We'll keep doing what we're doing. Put checkerboards across. That way everybody knows it's DC. People don't know it's DC. And then when they put checkerboards across, people were like, oh, no, those are DC. Let's get these. And that's when they kind of, what really I think happened was in the beginning, DC was actually Marvel's distributor. So they only allowed them a certain amount of number a certain number of comics titles allowed on the shelf. So when they got out from under DC being their distributor, they were able to go a little bit better. Once again, guys, there's not much to be said about this. A lot of people blow it out of proportion. It really is just a friendly rival. A lot of people who say, I'll never read a DC comic ever in their lives, still know Batman and Superman, and they might know a couple of the big stories and such because we all try different things. The same thing. Like I said in the video, I'm a DC guy, mostly. By that I mean I will always err on the side of DC, even though DC is full of errors right now. But I still occasionally cross the line. I still want to find out what's happening with the Marvel characters that I used to love and have unfortunately slowly watched them be just dug into the dirt. DC, on the other hand, I'm watching quickly. They are trying to catch up to Marvel for destroying their characters and doing a very fine job of it. But still, it was fun. The rivalry was fun. Talking to people, especially considering sales-wise, if you're a DC fan, you had no leg to stand on. People would go, I love Marvel because Marvel's got Spider-Man, Marvel's got the X-Men, and, I'm thinking the Justice League, man, Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Flash. The C characters for DC are more just as popular as the A characters for Marvel, really. But Marvel had just continuously kicked DC's ass. I never truly understand why, but there you go. It was a fun rivalry. And if you read, there's a book out called Slugfest. I recommend it. If you read that, like I said in the intro, you'll find out that it really was a friendly competition. People would go out and they'd have softball games. They would meet each other for dinner and such like that. Hell, Justice League, or I should say the Fantastic Four, came out of a golf game between the two publishers. and oh, we got the super team coming, ha 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 ha, was the taunt heard around the world, because that's when Marvel said, you know what, we need a superhero team too. Stan, you need to write one up, and we ended up getting Fantastic Four. Yeah, a lot more fun than a lot of people who complain about it make it out to be. But that's just my opinion. What is yours? Let me know in the comments below. Just write a little, hey, you know what, this is what I think kind of thing. It doesn't take too much time. Also, click like and share. Get word out about the channel. If you don't mind helping out the channel another way, there's a Ko-Fi link. Drop $1 in the tip jar there. And I'd like to thank everybody who's already done that. To everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.